Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Thor, issue number 14. Try and get a view without a reflection there. This is Prey, the finale. So this is the final part of the Prey arc. This was, let's just say, it defied my expectations. I liked this issue. I actually liked it a lot. Let's get talking about why. After we say who made the comic book. So this is Donny Cates on writing, Nick Klein doing art, Matt Wilson doing color art, VC's Joe Sabino on letters and design, Oliver Coipel and Matt Wilson doing the cover art, whole bunch of people doing variant covers, including Nick Klein. I will be getting Nick Klein's variant cover. I usually don't like to get variant covers, you know what I'm saying? But I'm probably going to get that one next month, whenever this one comes out, because that's a gorgeous freaking variant. Anyway, bang, yeah, people did covers. And Thor was created by Stan Lee, Larry Lieber, and John Mother effing King of Comics, Jack Kirby. So, yeah. Okay, let's get talking about the book itself. So, in the previous issue, it actually ended with Donald Blake facing off against the Destroyer. Here we go in retrograde a little bit. And, okay, cool, I'm okay with that because it very quickly gets back into him fighting against the Destroyer with Thor in the Destroyer armor. All right, cool, whatever, it is what it is. I made my gripes about how the Destroyer armor is bollocks at this point. I'm not even British, but it just seems like such a perfect word for it, you know? But we're past that because this is the next issue. It's happening. It's happening. Just stop trying to make fetch happen. And I never even saw that movie. So we get to see Donald Blake get powerhoused. He gets outed a little bit. Now, he keeps trying to make a comeback, doesn't quite work. I'm cool with that. Why? Because I think you guys have gotten to the end of the preview pages at this point. I'm going to try and make it so that I'm now showing you that last page again that you'd seen in the previews. So bang. So if you read these previews as I read them yesterday to get a quick little heads up, I had to get all the stuff from, what I could so that I can have these things ready, for you guys. We ended here. And it's like, oh, great. So the freaking hammer just kind of bamps or crack-a-dooms in his hand. It wasn't there, and now it's there. And he's getting ready to make a comeback. It's like, great, we're going to get a big back and forth. This is the final issue, and it makes sense because this is what Donny Cates does. Everything is a big old freaking, it's a big spectacle every single time, right? Well, this time he had Nick Klein do a big spectacle, but it wasn't the way that I wanted. This is what not the way I expected. This is actually what I wanted. Right here, bang. This is the next page. Donald Blake gets cut off. Like there's literally freaking Jules sitting there talking about, oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration? Were you finished? Well, allow me to retort. Bam! He just cold clocks this dude in the next week. This guy, like, look at Nick Klein smacking Donald Blake, like the cestus spikes go right into his freaking skin as he's all like, blah, blah, blah. Like, this dude gets jacked hard. He's like, look at his eye. He's like, the first rule of Fight Club, don't talk about Fight Club. Wait till you get to the second rule, mother fathead. This is the first rule. This is the second. Like, dude, they were not clowning around. There was no games played, no F's given, only rights and lefts, and an occasional knee, which I like that also, like a little bit of ground games, like do the Muay Thai lock and bam, and knee him to the freaking chin. Listen, Nick Klein, this is perfect. You remember? There's about a page and a half of fight in here between these two. Now, that's besides that double page spread on there. When you go back and you look at the comic books, Walter Simonson didn't use too many of the splash pages. You know what I'm saying? He didn't use a whole lot of those. In fact, the only one of his books in Thor that he did use splash pages in a lot was that, I think it was 280, where he used nothing but splash pages. When he fought the Midgard serpent, the thing that was just like an afterthought in this series, in this arc. So he didn't use too many splash pages. So and when I hear stuff like that, it makes sense to me, especially when you go back and you look at Jack Kirby's long run on Thor, including the creation of Thor, where You could count the number of splash pages in his run on one hand and still have fingers left over. You know what I'm saying? So believe me, people can overuse the splash page. What? I think I've used this example before for Donny Cates. That if you've seen one Ric Flair match, you've seen them all. We don't go. So definitely see a Ric Flair match. But you don't come back to see the Ric Flair match. You come back to see those promos, to hear those promos. You know what I'm saying? To witness that magic, baby. That sounded more like Dusty Rhodes, but you get my gist, right? You get my drift. Don't get my jizz. Don't. Unless I know you really well. That's your decision. Anyway, listen. Overusing anything gets frustrating, gets annoying. And that includes the tropes. And I've said multiple times, Donny Cates uses too many tropes. So I'm always expecting tropes with Donny Cates at this point. In this particular case, if this is something he's going to keep on doing, the things that I liked in this comic book, then it's going to wear out real quick. But I have to say I loved what I saw in this comic book. The timing of that fight, I don't know if it was Cates, if it was his decision, or if it was Klein's decision, or if it was the editor's decision. I'm trying to follow up and learn more about the editing process so that I can better understand the entire anatomy of a comic book. I've been talking to a lot of editors as of late, past and present, and it's impressive. It's amazing. You know what I'm saying? It's really amazing seeing some of the stuff that they have to deal with. And how a lot of this stuff is their fault. But that being said, I'm being silly, but only partially. The rest is facetious. The fight scene was exactly as perfect as it needed to be. Now, I was expecting it to be longer. Again, this is my second expectation on this comic book. I was expecting the comic book to be longer, right? I was expecting the fight scene to be longer because I expected that it was just going to be dragged out because of the final issue of this particular installment, right? And it was going to be this big thing where it's like, oh, Donald Blake is super powerful and going after, I got your butt, man. Yeah, sure. I'm sure that's what it's going to be. But it was only a page and a half, and I was shocked when it ended. Genuinely. And then we get Odin confronting Donald Blake. Now he comes walking up and he looks badass because he's got his armor on. He's got Gungnir in his hand, and God, that's just it's drawn amazingly. Everything in this book is just drawn so amazingly. I don't remember if I said that Nick Klein is permanently on my radar now, but Nick Klein is permanently on my radar now. The art in this book was just spanktacular, right? That's a step above spectacular. It's a spank it. So listen, I'm really bad at jokes. I'm a dad jokes, right? So just ignore that stuff. The faces in this comic book are what really does it. All right? That's what really... If you know what you're doing and you have a good team on your hand, you can make 2 comic books in one. You can make a comic book that kids will enjoy and that adults will enjoy also. As an adult, I don't think it's that hard. But I understand if kids don't get it because they've only experienced half of that equation, right? It's like me trying to understand, what a woman goes through in childbirth or even just having her period. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's got nothing to do with me. I can just sit down and say, do you need anything? Need me to shut up? What else are you going to do? This was a comic book that was good for both, right? It tickles the kid. Try not to tickle too many kids. Go to jail for that. Not that I know from experience, believe that. But it was also really good for adults. And it didn't preach, but there was good stuff in here. Guys, pay attention to the faces in this comic book. Pay attention to the faces because you never know which one is going to speak the truth. The first one that I noticed was Odin's face when he was going up against dickhead over here, Donald Blake. You see, because when you go into a fight and you know what you're doing, there's different faces that you'll have on, right? And this is not just experiencing them, it's actually seeing it in other people also. A man trying to protect his family from a group knows he's probably not going to get out of it alive. But if they're doing the right thing, the only thing he cares about is already running towards safety. And he's just got to be that stopgap. So he's won. Even if he's about to die, he's won. And he'll have a certain kind of face on. If you want to know what that face looks like, look at Odin's face when he comes walking up to Donald Blake. That's a great face, right? Then he summons Mjolnir back to him. He is technically the creator of Mjolnir, right? Much like with the destroyer armor, it was created by the dwarves. I think it was Snorri. Anyway, created by the dwarves and then enchanted, blessed empowered by Odin. So this son of a gun, he walks up and he's just like, got to do what I got to do. Now, Odin is this character who, back in the day, remember, he created the destroyer armor to fight against the Celestials. These Celestials who he was told by the other Sky Fathers. So that's Osiris, that's Zeus. You know what I'm saying? That's all these other leaders of the other religions. And he's the All-Father, so that's the highest of the Sky Fathers. But he was told by the other Sky Fathers, we can't defeat the Celestials. It just can't work. And I'm not talking about Jason Aaron's run, because with all due respect, to hell with that run. Okay? I'm talking about the original time when the destroyer armor was created. Odin didn't believe that he was going to win, but it didn't matter, because what was behind him is what he was trying to protect. So going up against this unbeatable force and not being an immovable object, but doing the best you can, he did the best he could. And that's the kind of resolution that you expect in a true leader, right? And when you look at Odin's face, he's not so sure that he's going to walk out this alive. He's wearing his armor and all that stuff, but I mean, Lady Jane just whooped his ass 2 issues ago. I mean, come on. You know what I'm saying? I'm not supposed to be that strong. No, you're not. He's that weak. You know, so I'm digging on that. When he summons the hammer, the scene that happens next, one, it makes me wonder about Daniel Warren Johnson's run on Beta Ray Bill. But I'm telling you right now, when I'm going to show you the scene in here. God, I want to show everything in this comic book. I just want to go page by page and go over this whole entire comic book. I'm not going to, but man, it's taking a lot. It's actually Beta Ray Bill who catches the hammer. And because he's worthy, you know what I'm saying? And realistically, Thor, Beta Ray Bill, and Captain America, in my opinion, should be the only people who are worthy of Mjolnir, of Thor's hammer. They're the only people who should be. I understood the Lady Jane thing, and I was down with it, 100%. So I'll allow that exception in my headcanon. The other ones, F that. You know what I'm saying? And yes, that includes Superman. F that. Can't keep on doing that game where everybody's worthy, because then nobody's unworthy. And just look, right now in the world, everybody's apparently worthy of Mjolnir. But Beta Ray Bill gets the hammer, and he's proving what he is. And he helps out Thor, and Thor recognizes what he did. And there's that brotherly moment thing, which there should be. It's a great Beta Ray Bill, not a great Beta Ray Bill moment. And I remember Donnie telling me that if not his favorite, one of his favorite characters is Beta Ray Bill. So makes sense, right? I'm glad that he's treating the character with a lot of respect. And he stood up for himself too. Beta Ray Bill stood up for himself. Man, that is the Beta Ray Bill that I'm used to seeing. Walter Simonson's run, right? When he goes up and he's like, yeah, I understand that you want your son to have back his weapon, but with all due respect, pry it out of my dead hands. How about that? You know what I'm saying? Fuck around and find out. Come for it. All right? Took your son down without the hammer. What can I do to you? Well, nothing. But he figured he could. And quite frankly, I was curious to see that. That's like, Black Widow standing around T'Challa's car, Io walking up and talking about move or you'll be moved. It's like, I don't know. I kind of do and kind of don't want to see this fight. Fuck around and find out. So Beta Ray Bill is going to hold on to that hammer for a couple minutes. For a hot minute, that's his. Thor comes walking up. Now, Odin is thinking, I'm going to handle this. Let me get into the Odin stuff, even though the Donald Blake stuff comes up first. I just want to get the Odin stuff out of the way. Odin comes walking up. It's like, I'm going to handle this. I created this mess. I'm going to end this mess. And he's saying, rather than fixing things, his way of fixing things is the typical Odin way. This is from the mythology. This is from the comics. Odin is beyond wise. And you'd think that he sees, and that's one of the things like about the mythology, not necessarily the comics, where he sees something, right? One of the eyes is in the well of Mimir. He sees something that nobody else can see. So maybe he's grim about it because he's been seeing it forever. Imagine being able to see the grim future over and over and over again, awake and asleep, always seeing this future, knowing how it has to play out, going over it so many times in different ways in order to make the best that you can for people who are already going to die. You understand why he doesn't have time to coddle his son. You know what I'm saying? It makes sense. It's one of the things I've always loved about the character of Odin, even though he's a straight up jerk. Similar kind of reason why I like Tony Stark. Here's a futurist who knows what's best for the future. He just happens to be an a-hole about it. It's one of the reasons why I always get drawn into an Iron Man comic book because, man, Stark is so easy to hate when you do him right? When you write him the correct way, we should love hating this guy. So what is Odin going to do? The hammer that sees everything as a nail. He gets his own nail, Gungnir, and he's about to run Donald Blake through. And he's like, this is what I got to do. Thor stops him in his own way, the way that he was taught, right, by his daddy. He may be your father, but he ain't your daddy. Take my mask. I'll be okay. Somebody open a window? But, oh, man. Yeah, Odin is a little bit like, son, could we talk? Like, we're in public right now. There's a lot of people here. And that's one of the things about Odin also, even though he's resolute. He brought, like, the armies, the first watch of, plus some, like a +1 with him to battle against Donald Blake because he didn't think that he can handle it. You know what I'm saying? But now the chips are in his favor. Thor did his business. Beta Ray Bill did his. He disarmed Blake, right? So now all that's left is to kill this guy. And that's what Odin knows how to do. So, hey, I'll handle this right now. This is a power I can do right now. I will fix my mistake by killing my mistake. Wow. Sure, I'm glad the condom didn't pop. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh no, don't worry. I can fix this. Coming up with a coat hanger, Gungnir the coat hanger. Never misses. Damn, dude. Anyway, so here's what I'm going to get into Blake. Blake says things that people who do not deal with suicide, who do not deal with suicidal thoughts, and who do not talk to people who are suicidal themselves would never know about. Every so often, it's good to leave a little piece of yourself in a comic book. And that's what Donny Cates did in this. I've talked before about my battles, my bouts with depression, and that I do get suicidal thoughts fairly often, and eventually you get a handle on it. I know there's a whole bunch of stuff out there about suicide, and with all due respect, most of it's horse crap. Saying it is what it is, and it actually gets me a little bit angry that people call themselves experts and they're not. I'm going to give you an example. A person who is having a suicidal thought is called suicidal. What do you call someone who is prone to suicidal thoughts but not actually having an episode at the moment? Now try and find that word on the internet. Yeah, we just don't know enough about suicide. We don't understand it enough. As much as people like to think that we do, no, we actually don't. I've had my own bouts with it, and I do talk to plenty of vets, several of them who are suicidal, and I counsel because it's the good thing to do. It's the right thing to do. And seeing these words that Donald Blake used, these are coming from, I believe these are all coming from Donny Cates, unless one of the editors said, hey, use these words also, which I doubt. I genuinely doubt. But honestly, maybe. I don't know. I'm just leaving it open. But Cates goes and puts the words in there where he says things like, kill me, kill me. Any idiot can write that. But when he says, make it so that I don't even exist anymore. When you grow up religious, Catholic in my particular case, and then you find other religions, and many of them have a God, and many of them have a heaven, which means that a lot of them have a hell also. That suicide is, it's not a good thing. It's evil. It's, you can't you go to purgatory, or you go to hell, or you go to whatever. And yeah. Thanks. Appreciate. So just live with pain, right? The idea is that death isn't enough if you believe that you're going to walk into something worse later. Somebody who commits suicide who's particularly religious, not just on the surface, but deeply spiritually religious and believes that there's a hell, who commits suicide anyway, it is a level of self-righteous assholery to ever be angry at the person who did this, because it must have been really, really bad for that person. Not being able to see any way out. None. And that person, I'm sure, was clawing tooth and nail trying to get out. And couldn't find any, couldn't think of any. And nobody else around to try and help. So a lot of times what people who are suicidal will say is, I wish I could just not exist. Not even, I wish I never existed. Just, I wish that I could just cease to exist. I don't want to go to heaven or hell or purgatory or anything. I just want it to be over. If my soul is going to go someplace, I just want my soul to cease to exist, to just blink out of existence entirely. Those are the words that are used by someone who is suicidal and who is religious also, or at least has some belief, some doubt that maybe it won't all be over. Maybe you're just going to make it worse. Maybe it is out of the frying pan into the fire. Yeah, that hurts. That hurts really bad. And to see that, it's cool that Donny didn't put any, at least I didn't notice it. I didn't notice any tropes in this. I just saw really good writing. I saw writing that made me believe in the comic book, that made me believe in every single one of the characters here. Blake's face, right? And this is Nick Klein. Because if you can't draw like this, then it ain't happening. Nick Klein draws Blake's face. That look of, I just wanted it all to end. I just wanted this to stop. I want to get revenge on the people who I figured maybe did this to me, and just lashing out and just trying. You know? And of course, here's the hammer. Going to try and nail him with Gungnir. But then Thor comes along. You know, I've said before that I'm sick and tired of seeing Thor and Loki stories. Not because I'm tired of seeing Thor and Loki stories, but because I'm tired of seeing bad Thor and Loki stories. Because so many people just do this thing, and dude, facts being facts, Jason Aaron just did this to death, and they were not believable. They didn't draw me in. None of the Thor and Loki fights that Jason Aaron did were believable. And here's a Thor and Loki barely interaction that just, it's so believable. Wow. When Thor stops Odin and he tells Donald Blake, I'm not going to kill you, dude, because you're my brother. And you see his face. God damn it, Nick Klein, you freaking bastard, you. Because it's not just Thor's face. This is where the adults come into play. Look behind the scenes. Look at the crowd of faces there. Look at Loki's face. When Loki hears Donald Blake is preaching his story, it's like that camaraderie. He knows there's something there. He feels something, right? And he's like, oh my God, somebody else feels what I feel. Now, you thought this was going to be a big thing, and maybe it will. Who knows? There's so much there, man. Thor, of course, is still going to be Thor, because we can't have too much character development. That's important. Knowing that perfect balance to take. I don't know who's responsible. This doesn't feel like it's Kate's. I want it so desperately to be Kate's. I feel like he just had a lot of guidance on this one. Because it's so different from everything else in the previous 13 issues. But if it was him, god damn, dude, this is just boom and Babe Ruth. You know what I'm saying? Like, wow, this was just out of the ballpark, baby. Whew, this one flew into Mets Stadium. They didn't even exist at the time. He sent that one back to Boston. But bro, wow, this was deep. You had just enough character development for Thor that he recognizes him as his brother. But he knows his brother, and it's like, man, I will whoop your ass. He picks him up, and he tases him. Don't tase me, bro. Ah! It was really bad. It was really bad. And I'm mad at Thor for being a freaking knucklehead. But that's who Thor is. That's exactly who Thor is. So that's exactly what he would do. He had just a little bit of character development, which is just enough because it's a comic book, and we don't want these to end. Right? Unless they start to suck, in which case, maybe put them in mothballs. It's an army term. So, Loki offers to put him in mothballs, so to speak. I love the line. You've asked me to lie to you before. Are you asking me to do that now also? What a great Loki thing to say. This comic book from beginning to end was just unbelievable. What Loki does with, I'm not going to spoil it, but I will suggest this. If one day, maybe today, look up the punishment of Loki. You know what I'm saying? Look up the punishment of Loki. for in the it's not in a comic book, in actual mythology. I don't know if Bullfitch still makes mythology books or not, but look up a book on mythology, look up the punishment of Loki, and then understand how powerful this was. Right? Ain't no good guys. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone. There's no good guys in this one, man. Just incredibly written characters. Did I mention the art was amazing? Oh man, this was a powerhouse of a comic book. Excuse me. Everything about this, it was just timed perfectly. The perfect stories, just enough character development, which was literally a smidge, and that's all we'll ever need to see. The story put on hiatus, but in the perfect, this isn't like a dusty finish in wrestling, you know what I'm saying? No, this is the end of an arc, and whatever comes next, I'm looking forward to it. And whatever the future is going to be for Donald Blake and Loki and Odin and Thor and Beta Ray Bill and everybody in this book, I'm just like, I'm here for it. I am an attentive viewer. Go, baby, go. I cannot praise this issue enough. This is so out of left field. Where are these baseball references come from? Anyway, I loved this comic book. I loved this comic